Hi, Chris.
Hey, Daniel.
How are you?
How are you?
You always look good.
I got a hat and a sweatshirt on today. Not too much work to worry about images.
How are you? How's the weather there?
Busy as you can guess. It's a week to election, so things are swirling around. The president is flying in today, in fact, to Allentown. So a few miles from where I am right now. I don't know if I could see Air Force One go over, but if I do, I'll put the camera there for you.
Well, it's related to my first question that Trump mentioned 6 times Pennsylvania during the debate. It seems that your state will be the mother of all battles, the tipping point of the election.
Oh, I think that's fair, Daniel. You look at the math, right? I'm sure folks in Argentina know this and try it by now. We have a very weird system of electing our presidents with states and electoral college. The key is you have to find 270 electoral votes, and you start looking at the permutations to make that happen. And it seems that almost any path for the president and to almost the same degree, Joe Biden, includes 20 Pennsylvania electoral votes in getting to 270. There are certainly ways that could happen without, but it seems unlikely. And therefore, the attention that's being paid to Pennsylvania is extraordinary. Biden's been here much more than any other state in his limited travels. The president is here seemingly constantly. The ads are everywhere on TV. The efforts to get people out to vote are extraordinary. It is the epicenter, if you will, of this cycle.
Which are the last numbers of Muhlenberg College about the election in the state?
We had it last week was our last, and that was about a week old since we've been in the field, and we had Biden up by 7, 51 to 44, and that's not very changed than when we polled in August, where we had Biden at 49 and Trump at 45. So a few points better for Biden, but it's very similar, which has been the story, at least for us and lots of the polls here, the consistency. Biden kind of right around 50, Trump around 44, 45. Little bit of waves here and there, but up until this point, not a lot of breaking in this race. And maybe that's because they're so known and so established and views are so deep at this point.
Chris, many political analysts are comparing this election, 2020, against 2016. In particular, they think that Trump will lose because he's losing now Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. But is there any possibility that this election is maybe we should compare with the 2004, the second election that won George W. Bush, when Bush lost in that times that 3 states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, but he won Ohio and Iowa, and then he won many states of maybe of the deep America, but he won the election in that times with 286 seats in the electoral college. Do you see that maybe Trump is changing the coalition maybe for this election, and maybe the comparison with the 2016 where it's not relevant in this case?
It's an interesting comparison, Daniel. I certainly think 2016 remains valid in the sense that it was so close in those 3 states, 77,000 votes flipped. Among those 3, you have President Clinton right now. So you have to go back to 2016 and look at those states, and you could understand the Democrats think that's their easiest path forward to recapturing the presidency. The president won those states narrowly last time. He thinks he can hold those, but your comparisons to 2004 are certainly interesting and I think valid. It was a very, very close race. I remember polling that race is the first I really did in Pennsylvania, and John Kerry won Pennsylvania very narrowly by a few points in a very close race, while George W. Bush won states, as you mentioned, like Ohio and Florida. The kind of difference this time around on the margin is if Biden wins Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, it's in all essence, the deal's done. So he could win all those other states like Florida, and that the president win all of those and it wouldn't matter. He needs at least one of those three and hope he doesn't lose a place like Arizona. If he loses Arizona, which I think he very well may, then he's got to win all three of those and pick up something else. So 2004 is not a bad comparison. You had an incumbent that year, a Republican incumbent who wasn't very popular as the Iraq War was unfurling. And he certainly found a way back in a very, very close election. That was, and this one very well could be in that. So not a bad comparison to look at, but I still think 2016 is the frame to build off of.
James Carville said maybe 3 decades ago that it's the economy stupid. In this case, do you think that maybe the COVID-19, it's the COVID-19 stupid in this case?
I've heard that, right? You know, it's economy
because the Trump is well rated in relation to the economy now.
He still is. He still is.
According to Gallup poll.
Yeah, our poll says that. Lots of polls say that the president, if it's on economic, even in the midst of this turbulence in the pandemic, people give him a fairly positive review. They say they're better off now than when he came in. More say that than say they're worse off, even now in this moment. And that's why he wants to make it about the economy. But the pandemic is persistent and is key, and it's kind of merged with healthcare. Those two issues behind the economy are very, very important, and the president loses badly on both of those. So if we're talking healthcare and we're talking COVID up to election day, and it seems to be the focus on voters' minds, that's problematic for the president. And so in many ways, that may be the deciding factor. It is, you look at just how badly he is rated on that issue. We have, in our polls, we've asked this a number of times now, and he gets a majority of people in our state, Pennsylvania, rate him at the worst possible on that. A majority say he has handled it poorly. Very few say he has handled it excellent. If people are thinking about the virus as they approach this election and vote on that, he's in big trouble. That's why he wants to make it about the economy. He's trying. Perhaps he'll have some success, but I think it's hard right now in the midst of a surge in the pandemic to perhaps convince people they should be looking elsewhere.
Chris, during the debate, Joe Biden made some references to oil industry and fracking industry that many analysts said that it was a big mistake because in particular in relation to Pennsylvania, that maybe he can lose some votes there because Pennsylvania has a strong oil and fracking industry. It is related, that industry, to the in Pennsylvania?
Modestly, Daniel. It is, we have a big fracking presence. Extractive industries like gas and oil and coal remain big here, but perhaps not as big as they once were. And for a lot of voters, it is going to be a key issue. And I think the Joe Biden did make a mistake there by perhaps sounding more antagonistic to the industry. The sweet spot in Pennsylvania is to say, look, we, fracking is still necessary. It's part of our economy. It's part of the Pennsylvania economy. We need it, but we were going to regulate it. We're going to tax it. We're going to make sure that it's doing its part and being healthy and transparent. That's what's worked in Pennsylvania. A lot of Democrats have won Pennsylvania, the governor, the Senator Casey, other offices. It is an important issue, but I wouldn't overstate value. I guess everything gets overstated when Pennsylvania is so close and was so close. And so little things matter. But one thing I would say is a lot of the people that care about that issue and are very pro fracking and oil are already deeply aligned with the president. So who it moves is another question.
If I ask you a ranking of key issues in Pennsylvania, which would be this ranking?
We've asked this in our polls, so I'm going to go to the data, Daniel. The economy, number one. Healthcare, number two, and COVID, almost identical, maybe a tie for two. COVID, healthcare, and then much farther down, issues like energy, issues like law and order, issues like racial justice.
And which is the relation between economy and COVID-19? Is 2-to-1 or 3-to-1? Maybe?
No, very, very close. So we asked
very
this,
close.
Maybe a third of Pennsylvanians say the economy, but maybe a quarter say both healthcare and COVID. So if you combine COVID and healthcare, it's bigger than the economy. If it's just economy, it's the number one issue, but not by a big margin over those other issues. It's the top one, but those other two issues are very close and separate from the rest of the issues.
Chris, Trump will be, if Trump wins, will be a real nightmare for the pollsters. Because, yes, I read last night an interview to Frank Luntz that said, my profession is done directly in the Hill.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, if the polls are off this year, and as much as I could show you they weren't off very much in 2016, people have the perception they were. So if they seem to be off again this year, even if they're close, let's say the polls show at the end a very close race, but leaning Biden and Biden loses, the polls will be said to have failed. And I think Luntz is right. I don't know how people would think about the industry after that. So, but as I tell folks, I report just like your reporter, right? What I see, what I find in our data. We have to make decisions about the data. If it is flawed at the end, then we should be responsible. We should look at it. But we also have to think about what polls do tell us and don't tell us. So let's just say at the end, like in 2016, Pennsylvania, the final average had Hillary Clinton up 2 points. Trump won by less than 1 point. The polls said it was close.
Yeah.
It was close. It just happened that it crossed over that line. But that won't convince people. I can't bring out my slides and show a lot of people. The perception is their perception. And in 2016, the perception is the polls were very flawed. And if they fail this time in terms of the final perceptions, it will be hard for the industry to recover.
Which numbers do you imagine for the next Tuesday in relation to the general vote and maybe to the electoral college? Which number you imagine?
I'm just following kind of the evidence, and that's what I work off of. I would say I'd be shocked beyond belief if Donald Trump won the popular vote. I imagine he lost the popular vote by 3 million last time. He's probably going to lose the popular vote by between 5 to 10 million this time. That places it somewhere around.
It will be larger the margin, no?
Oh yeah,
this time in popular vote, it will be larger.
He'll lose bigger, in my perception.
No less than 5 million of difference.
I'm looking at the numbers and the percentage differences. that equates to at least 5 to 10 million. If he loses by the margins, I think he's going to lose. Let's say he loses by 5%. That's 5 million. I think he'll probably lose 5, 6, 7% in the final numbers. Again, nobody cares because it's all about the electoral college. And right now, I think probability says that he loses there, and he loses, with maybe Biden getting 280, 300 electoral votes, which is enough. All you have to do is get past 270.
No less than 300 electoral seats.
Yeah, I don't know if he can get to, Biden, I wouldn't be shocked if he gets to 300. I'd be I think the chances of Biden getting over 300 is about the same as Trump maybe getting to 270. And I think Trump's path is much harder. It's achievable. I say this all the time. He did it. He showed us that path in 2016. So if you don't believe it's achievable, you're probably not looking. But it's a different race. The final thing I'll say is that it's a different race. It's not Hillary Clinton against Donald Trump. It's Joe Biden against Donald Trump. It's 4 years in. He's not an outsider. He is an insider, even though he doesn't like to say it. He is the president. We view presidents differently than we do challengers. It's a different climate. That doesn't mean his path does not exist. I just think it is narrower and steeper. And so he's got more work to do than he did 4 years ago. Can he do it? Sure. There's maybe a 1 in 4 chance. And don't discount the 1 in 4. If people know odds, right? That's not that radical. If it's 1 in 4 or 1 in 3, the 1 happens quite regularly. And so he certainly could find that 1 this time. But if I'm a betting person and I look at the odds and I think about the odds, I think the odds are against him. He has to beat the odds one more time.
I was remembering a film of, do you remember a film of Phil Collins, Against All Odds? Yeah, it could be Trump winning against all odds.
And he could. He would be winning, not like Phil Collins said, he'd be winning against long odds. I would say it's not makes for a good pop song to say against moderately long odds, but that's what he would be. It's not all odds. It's moderately long, but not outrageous. It's not like if you told me right now, if you asked me to say, what are the chances that Donald Trump wins the popular vote? I would have to take 20 to 1 odds.
No chance.
Yeah. If you said, let's bet on this, and I say, okay, what odds are you going to give me? Before I would be interested in taking that bet, Daniel, you would have to say, hey, if you put up $1, Chris, I'll pay you 20 if Trump loses. Then I might start thinking about it. I'd say, probably I'd want something more like 50 to 1 before I'd say, yeah, I'll throw $1 in. I think there's probably worth a chance. That's how you have to think about this. And the Electoral College, if we were playing the game and you said to me, oh, Chris, well, what odds will you want to take President Trump to win? I'd say, Daniel, give me, 4 to 1, maybe 5 to 1. And I would take, if you said, hey, you put up $1, Chris, I'll put up 5. And Trump wins, I give you my 5. If Biden wins, you give me your $1. That's about what I think. And yeah, and that's not crazy though, right? 1 to 5, people would take that bet. And it's plausible, maybe not probable, but plausible. And that's how we have to consider things like this.
Okay, Chris, maybe the last question. Could you imagine some kind of last time movement of the electorate, or maybe some kind of black swan, or
well, look, things could happen. I don't
in relation to the shy voters that many analysts
they weren't one of the things, and it'll be a long discussion. I don't think there were very many shy voters last time. There were undecided voters who at the end might have been leaning different ways and not sure and maybe not clear. At the end, lots of those voters broke to President Trump in 2016, and they carried the day. Those close races in Pennsylvania, those late breakers deciding between 2 unpopular candidates, edge to the president. Do I see, first of all, there's not nearly as many undecided people to play with. Joe Biden isn't incredibly popular, but he's not as unpopular as Hillary Clinton. So at the end, is there just that many votes to decide and change? You could bring people out differently. And I think that's one hope for the president, that he's going to get all these people out and maybe more. But is that going to be enough? And I think probability says no. But can he find that path? Sure. It's just I think it's harder. We'll see this week. Keep an eye, for those that are looking, keep an eye on the polls. If they do tighten considerably, we see in Pennsylvania a 2-point, 3-point lead. Nationally, it gets closer, we're seeing the broad trends. He's got a puncher's chance. And that's elections. It's not, as Biden himself says, don't underestimate, and you shouldn't. We saw that last time. I think it's a different race this time, more challenging, but certainly attainable.
Okay, Chris. Well, as always, I will send you a video with this meeting, this virtual coffee. I think maybe the next time we will talk after the elections, we will talk with the new president. I think so.
We will see. That's the truth. And so until then, mi amigo, stay well. Be